again, we're back. Welcome to Crediversio's Q&A Wednesday live, August 23rd, 2023. I'm your host, David Michalek. Thank you so much for being here. And it's just going to be us today. So we're going to talk about, well, I'm going to do a demo of Crediversio again for those. I always try to get through this demo, and I get so many questions that maybe the fourth or fifth time is the charm. But that's okay. I'm here to answer your questions, and you can start firing them my way as soon as you've got a question. I'll answer them for you. So today it's just going to be us, like I said. So what that means is we can talk about credit repair. I know that's a subject that we don't really dive too much into when we got John Alzheimer on with me. But today it's there's no limits to what we can talk about. So feel free to ask your questions about credit repair, dispute letters, how scores work, how credit bureaus work, anything you want to know. That's what I'm here to help you with. If you got questions about how to use Crediversio, I'm going to try to dive into that a little bit today and go through some of the basic steps, some of the setup steps. And if you're new, if this is the first time you're joining a live, we do this every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. The live Q&A, let me know. Don't be shy. Say hello, and we will get rolling here. Little heads up, just a little housekeeping before we move on. I will not be here next Wednesday, but I will be here the Wednesday after that, and I'll be here with John Alzheimer, so just want to give you a heads up. I'll put a post on our Facebook page to remind you. Okay, I see we got coming close to a dozen people jumping on. Thank you so much for being here. Happy to have you. And I'm going to go ahead and jump into Crediversio. And I got a great demo account now, and I'll walk you through a couple of basics. And if you've got questions along the way, related or unrelated, let me know. Happy to answer them for you. This is our time together, and this is your time to have your questions answered. Anything you want to know, that's what I'm here for. All right, so I'm going to share the Crediversio homepage. Hopefully everybody can see this. Let me zoom out just a little bit. There we go. That's even better. So a couple of things right when you come to your homepage. One of the first things that I tell everybody they got to do is watch your tutorial videos. And we always know when somebody doesn't watch their tutorial videos when they call into customer service or they email, because about 90% plus of the questions that we get are answered in the tutorial video. So where do you find those? Go over to tutorials, and here's Quick Start videos. It's the first thing you're going to see. This is a little intro video. It's just setting up what's going to happen, what you need to do next, and what it really talks about is watching your Quick Start videos. Now, this is the same intro video that you saw when you initially signed up. I'm making the assumption that you have a Crediversio account. If you don't, then you can bypass the link in a credit report step. If you want to just come in here, watch the tutorial videos or the Quick Start videos and get a feel for how Crediversio works. And Quick Start video 1 is talking about setting up your account correctly. And this is one of the things that people miss. One of the most important things to do is to add your ID. You want to do that ahead of time. So where do you add your ID? There's a couple places. The easiest place is to scroll all the way down to the very bottom, right here where it says My Account. This is my demo account. That's why it says Demo, David Demo. And then you have Photo ID. Notice it's a blue check mark. It means I added my photo ID. And Proof of Address. Now, if I didn't have that, if I hadn't already done that, it would say Add It. I would click it, and it would take me over to my account page right here under My Docs. And this is my proof of address. When did I add it? I did it on the 9th of last month. So I did this during the last demo that I did, one before John Alzheimer was on with me. So this is closer to the first demo of the month. And if we want to view it or delete it, I have those options right here. Now, this is a desktop version. Mobile looks almost identical. Might just have to do a little bit of scrolling here and there to see this. But in fact, I think the mobile version is a little bit more intuitive, but very difficult to demonstrate mobile when going on a live like this. All right, so let's take a look. Proof of address. I just want to show this to you real quick because there's some confusion when it comes to proof of address. So the proof of address needs to be a document that the bureaus can feel assured that they did an identity check on you. So anytime you get a utility bill, gas, electric, water, trash, sewage, cable, satellite, they all did a quick credit check, and they are providing this service at your home. So the bureaus love utility bills. Another thing you can use as well is the cover page for an insurance document. That'll work. Don't need to have any particulars about your insurance on there. All they really care about is this section right here. Now, ideally, and this is not a big deal with Nevada Energy because everybody knows who Nevada Energy, or if I was in California, it'd be Edison. But they want to see the name of the provider of the utility right here, and then your name and address down here. And as long as that's right up the very top, they're happy. So a bank statement cover page will be perfectly fine. You can even do a W-2. You don't need to show your income or anything like that. Pay stub is certainly fine. So you've got a lot of options when it comes to your utility bill. Another key point to the utility bill is make sure it's recent. Don't provide something that's a year old. So why do we provide utility bills? The primary reason, because the bureaus know and your creditors know there's a pretty good chance that the address on your ID is probably not going to be your current address, because when we move, how often do we change the address on our driver's license? Probably not. So when you upload your photo ID, and it's going to situate it like that. This is a mock-up of my ID right here. And if the address doesn't match, that's perfectly fine. If your address does match, then where you live right now, still provide a utility bill. Let's not make the bureaus and your creditors do a lot of thinking. Okay, what do we got here? James Stevens. Now the Equifax guy isn't here. Hold on, let me go back to, should I dispute positive report? So James, the great advantage to having John Alzheimer is being able to deep dive into certain subjects. But 95% of the questions that are going to be asked here, I can answer them for you. In fact, I don't think I've been stumped in years. So don't worry about John not being here. Happy to answer your question for you. In fact, my main mentor over the last 10 years has been John. So, all right, let's see. Should I dispute positive reports if they are linked to negative accounts? Well, we're talking about two things that are really not compatible. A positive, so a report is your credit report. Are you talking about a account that's now positive that has negative history? Is that what you're asking? For example, do you have a account in good standing and you got some late payment history in the past that is something you want to dispute? Clarify if you need to at the bottom. But if that's the question that you're asking me, then you're perfectly fine. In fact, this is probably one of the more common things that's disputed on Crediversio are late payments on accounts that were open, auto lates, mortgage lates, certainly school loan late payments. These are all things that are available for you to dispute if you choose to. Remember that disputing is your legal right. The proof of performance, the proof of whether or not everything is reporting correctly is on the bureau, and also on the creditor to a degree. All right. Great question, by the way. So let's go back to Crediversio. So adding your proof of address and also your ID critical. Now, why do we want to do that before we create any disputes? That's because Crediversio is going to add that to your dispute letter for you. So very important that we start off here. Okay. When you come to your home page, 40-day countdown, we'll scroll down a little bit, current scores, and the dispute plan is right here. Oh, you know what? Let me take a poll since we got a pretty good group here. Something that we're going to implement by the end of the month. How many of you watching, and now we're going up towards a couple of dozen, and thank you so much for joining me. How many would like to have a service where you can click a button and have your dispute letters mailed automatically for you? Let me know if that's something that interests you. It's something that we are planning on bringing to Crediversio. Of course, there's a fee, not from us. That we're partnering with a very popular company and getting a big discounted rate. So all you have to do is click a button. It'll send your 3 dispute letters out to this company. They'll send it out for you. And I think it's a few, $3, maybe $4 per letter. So it's certainly cheaper than like Lob and all the other services that are out there, because we told them we wanted to be a very competitive like wholesale price, and they're working on that right now. So I want to throw that out there. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. Yeah, okay. A couple of people are saying me. Yeah, I appreciate that. James again. Previously paid account from a lender. Hold on, let me move over to my other screen. With a CO account from the same lender. So you got a collection charge off. So previously paid account from lender with a collection charge off account from the same lender. So what are you trying to do? Are you trying to dispute the collection charge off? Probably a charge off account if it's from the lender. Or are you saying that you have two different accounts? One is paid but open. So I need a little bit more clarity on what you're asking, James. Tim, do I need to unfreeze my credit report before I join? No. A credit freeze prevents creditors from accessing your credit report to in the act of offering presenting a firm offer of credit. But if you're going to be buying your credit report from one of the compatible 3 bureau providers to link to Crediversio, you do not need to unfreeze your credit report for that. Part of that process, when you sign up for one of these subscriptions, they're going to do an ID check. So they're going to ask you questions based off of data on your credit report that only you can answer. So they know for sure it's you. These are things that it'd be really, really difficult, borderline impossible for somebody other than you to open up a monitoring account. So don't worry about having to unfreeze. Yeah, Sean, interested in direct mail. Timothy, you too. Would be better than dealing with making time to go pay the post office $30 every time. Yeah, I'm hoping that's a minor exaggeration. You know, one of the things that it's important to know is that you can send dispute letters. I know there's this big kick with people sending certified mail. It's not really a thing. Bureaus have had the same address for decades. Things getting lost in the mail is not really so much a thing. And the reason why I know that is two of the guys that I consult with. One is a guy named Steve Rieger, who's been on this live several times. It's been a while, but he's been on several times with me. He used to run the entire dispute division, West Coast dispute division for TransUnion. He did that for 27 years. So we have a lot of working knowledge with what goes on behind the scenes in the bureaus, and all of them will tell you just send a regular stamp is fine, unless you've got an attorney or you've got some kind of potential litigation and you need, it's like life and death that you have certified, and then pay the certified. The great thing with this new service that we're bringing on board is it comes with tracking, not certified. It doesn't need to be certified. It does have tracking, and they'll give you, I think they'll give you the option to do text and email updates, but it'll let you know when the bureaus have received it. So that's pretty cool. It's not an additional charge, something that we negotiated with them. So it's a really, really good deal. Sean, good to see you. Welcome back. 3 paid and closed signature loans, repo charge off from same lender. James, here's the beautiful thing about the Fair Credit Reporting Act and about this whole process. It's your legal right. There's nothing punitive, meaning they're not going to punish you for disputing. There's only a couple of things that you ever want to be concerned about when you're disputing something. Number one is you don't want to dispute an inquiry against a lender who approved you and gave you a loan or a credit card, because they might think that's identity fraud, like they fraudulently gave somebody credit. So don't dispute inquiries that are for things that you were approved for. That's number one. Number two, be real careful disputing accounts that have a lot of age to them. Like, I'll give you a perfect example, and I do see this on occasion, where you've got that 5-year-old charge off. Okay, and it's the oldest account on your credit report. Let's say the charge off was 5 years ago, but you had the account for 10 years prior. Maybe let's say it's 5 years prior. You got 10 years of history on that account. 5 of it, of course, is charge off status. Well, what happened? First of all, it's probably not hurting you that much anymore. Charge offs are things that you can largely recover from in about 36 months or so, meaning they have an effect on your credit score, but it's nothing like it was the first 24 months. It lightens up a little bit from month 24 to 36, provided you're doing smart things, provided you don't have other derogatory credit that's hurting you. But if you dispute a 5-year-old charge-off, it's the oldest account or one of the oldest accounts on your credit report. So you got that age, the account age, and that gets deleted. Those are points you might lose that you're not going to see for a while. Age of accounts is 15% of your score, 82 points. You've got 82.5 points you got sitting there. So be careful with that. So that's the only thing I would advise you on, James, is if you're going to dispute something, look at what's the possible worst thing that can happen. It's just the two things that I gave you: inquiries and old charge-offs that have established history. Apart from that, you're free to dispute whatever you want. Worst case scenario, it doesn't come off and you're no worse off than what you were before. Okay, Lenora, welcome. Oh, what's the name of that fish? Is that Dory? Oh, what's the name of that fish? I love that movie. Okay, if I paid a credit repair company to work on my credit report and they send out dispute letters and I fire them, can I send out letters one more time if I don't know where they left off in the process? Yes, just wait 30 days. So a dispute really has no memory, meaning once you send a dispute, it's a 30-day timeline from the time that the bureaus receive the dispute. They have 30 days to resolve. They can sometimes go longer, but that's very, very rare. For the most part, most disputes are resolved between 2 and maybe 3.5 weeks at the latest. So it's all done within 30 days. Once that dispute is done, it's over. There's really no memory of it. So you're more than welcome to, if you want to cancel with them, give it at least 30 days. And then you're going to start off round one with credit reversal. It's perfectly fine, because who knows what they said and who knows what they disputed. They might not have disputed anything similar to what credit reversal is going to find on your credit report. So that's the strategy. Just wait 30 days. James, what was this? 5 years old, came back verified, so I'll leave that off my next round. Very smart, James. Yeah, don't worry about it. Listen, one of the whole scoring model that you and I all have to work off of is an algorithm that is trying to determine what's likely to happen in the next 24 months. That's what that score means. The higher the score, the better the risk you are. And every lender is going to interpret that score slightly differently. So that score ranges for pretty much everything that's consumer grade is between 300 and 850. So you got 550 points in there to swing. And all creditors, anybody who's looking at offering credit or anybody looking at your credit that's score centric, which a lot of lenders are, that score is going to tell them what is the probability based on what you're doing now, your behavior now, and your behavior in the past, but really only about the last 24 months or so. What is the probability of you having a major derogatory in the next 24 months? What's a major derogatory? Anything worse than a 90-day late. Minor derogatories, 30-60. Major derogatory, 90 and above. And that's all a creditor wants to know, for the most part, if they're really super score-centric, which a lot of lenders are. So you have really two things. You have score and you have lender criteria. So certain lenders have different appetites for risk. Like, for example, I'll give you one. I would love to have an American Express card. I don't think I can get one, even though all my credit scores are depends on what my credit card balances are. If I happen to have a balance, which I do right now because we're doing some reno in the house, my scores are always in the high 7s to low 8s. But even with great credit score and everything else looks good and good stability and all that great stuff, homeowner, all that stuff, I probably can't get a credit card from American Express. And the reason for it is because I defaulted on them over 10 years ago. So that's how I got into this business. If you haven't heard my story before, that's how I got into the credit repair space. Is I was a customer about 12 years ago, and American Express was one of those cards that got it wrapped up into the default, and I disputed it with the company that I was working with at the time. It got deleted. Not only did American Express get deleted, but the collection, because they sold that collection to Midland Funding, that got deleted as well. But still, that balance always existed. And I'll tell you what, these credit card companies have a long memory. So they probably won't approve me. Now, in addition to that, I've seen customers with high 700, mid 700 credit scores with a bankruptcy Now, in truth, the bankruptcy is 6 years old, 7, 8, 9 years old, getting ready to drop off at year 10. Clearly talking about a Chapter 7, but still the lender won't approve them because they have a bankruptcy. So score and lender criteria. All right. You are very welcome. Okay. I love the questions. Well, getting a couple of dozen people on, and love the questions. Thank you so much. So let's move on. Let me switch back over to Credit Versio. So right here at the top of the page, you see your dispute plan, and it'll tell you right off the bat. And I'm going to give you a couple of tips here because this is really, really important. So it'll say in red, create a dispute letter. So there is something to do. Create a dispute letter. That's the action. You got to send the dispute letter by 8:30. So when you signed up for your Credit Versio account, when you did, or if you're going to come to this page. 40-day countdown begins. So really, I've only got about 10 days. That's a lot of time, by the way. Should be able to do this, print your letters, and put a stamp on them and drop them in the mail within a couple of days. But I get it. But that's why we did that. We wanted to give you 3-4 days to get everything together, do your disputes, even though it takes seconds to create a dispute, and then drop them in the mail. You got to figure maybe 3 to 5 days to reach the bureau and get processed. We're counting processing time as well. And then that's when that 30-day timeline begins. All right, we've got a question from Sean. Let's come back here, then we'll continue. I'm going to bounce around quite a bit here. On my fourth round, my score is 619, 620, 610. I'm not going anywhere. These credit report people think I'm going to stop disputing. I'm going to keep going with Credit Versio. So Sean, here, so let me give you some advice on the dispute process. This is really only about a 6-month process, meaning 4 rounds, maybe 5. And Credit Versio is so good at data mining and finding problems in a credit report that if you're into round 5 and you don't see an error, let me show you what I mean. This is great for everybody watching. So if I go create dispute letter, it automatically pulls all of my negative information. I can dispute whatever I want. I can throw positive information here if I want to, but I'm not going to. Now, when I open this up, let me find one where I know there's an error. Okay, you see where this says duplicate credit error, the word error. If you're in round 5 and you're going to have things most likely that have been deleted and repaired, you're going to have things that are going to come back verified. So for those accounts that you've disputed 4 times, 5 times, and you're seeing in Credit Versio where it's not presenting an error, that means you're done. That means that account has very likely complied under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. They've done all the work they need to do. Remember, they need to prove to the bureaus that everything is reporting accurately. And they'll send you some minor verification to let you know. Usually it's the bureau that does that. Now, once you're done, you're done. Now, the great thing is, listen, if you get anything deleted, that's a win. That's a bonus. Now, Sean, this is aimed directly at you. The absence of bad credit does not mean the presence of good credit. What I mean by that is you can delete all of your derogatory credit. It doesn't mean that your score is going to go up. All that means is all the derogatory or most or some of the derogatory credit has been removed, and now your score is going to be based on what's left. So if score's not moving up, it means there's nothing or there's little on that credit report to cause that upward movement. So you have to start looking at what's causing that. Do I need to build credit? Do I need to have somebody add me as an authorized user? Do I have too much credit card debt? Do I have too many credit cards that have little balances on them? Little nuisance balances is what it's called. Like this is one that I see quite frequently where somebody's like, I don't know why my score is not moving. And I look at their credit report and they've got 5 credit cards and they all have little balances on them. And their overall utilization rate is 75%. Well, there's no wonder that you're going to have a score that's not moving anywhere. Here's what I do. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 credit cards. And I only use really one. I just use my Costco City card, and I use my Amazon card because they give me 5% cash back. But those get paid off. I never have a balance on my Amazon card or my Discover card, even though I'll use them from time to time. I might carry a balance on my City card if I'm doing like I'm spending right now because we're doing some renovation work to the new place. So just make sure you pay your balances off and don't have a bunch of cards with balances. It's one of the things that really is really going to help quite a bit. Let me know if you have any more questions on that, Sean. Greg, I think I recognize your name. Welcome back. Something told to freeze LexisNexis, Innovis, and before I do disputes. Who are they, and why is this important? So I wish and Greg, I realize this is probably the first time you've asked this question. I've probably answered this question, no joke, maybe 300 or 400 times in my career. So if the credit repair, air quotes, credit repair industry wasn't full of nonsense, it wouldn't be full of anything. And one of the things that I can probably spend an hour here rattling off all the things that are factually inaccurate about advice that credit repair companies or somebody who claims to be a credit repair expert is giving to the population. One of the big ones is freezing your secondary bureaus like Innovis and LexisNexis and SageStream. This is absolutely worthless. And the reason why people do this is they think that I'll use LexisNexis and SageStream as an example. Innovis is just another minor credit bureau. But SageStream and LexisNexis is where your public record information is housed, particularly bankruptcy. So when people want to dispute bankruptcy, they'll tell you, well, freeze your LexisNexis and your SageStream so the bureaus can't verify that. That is factually inaccurate. And we know this from the bureaus because, as I've mentioned before, and Greg, maybe you've seen my lives before, but I routinely bring on people who come from the bureaus, particularly in dispute resolution. And they'll tell me no, that's complete nonsense. The direct connect verification process that the bureaus have with SageStream and LexisNexis is a direct link. You can't sever that link with a freeze. A freeze, all that does is prevent creditors from accessing your report. It does not prevent bureaus from accessing your report. So don't waste your time. All these little things, these gimmicks are not going to do anything for you. Don't even worry about it. Okay, my student loans were just forgiven last week. Cool. I had it for 25 years. Oh my gosh, in forbearance. What can you expect? Well, they're going to remain on the credit report. They're just going to be zero balances. I'm making the assumption that they have a balance now. If they're forgiven, then you're just going to see a zero balance. And all that's going to do is student loans are installment loans. So they never really had much of an impact on you to begin with, unless they were derogatory, unless you weren't paying them. But if they're going to forgive it, it's a zero balance. Probably not going to see any difference. Just like if you were to pay off an installment loan, maybe you might see a little bit of a drop in score. But for something that's that old, you've had that long, I wouldn't suspect that you're going to see much of anything. Unless you've got derogatory history on it. If that's the case, then I would just dispute it if you haven't already. All right, let's see. So you're talking about thank you. You're very welcome. Tim, does it matter if I use online mailing service like LetterStream, or should I print and physically go to the post office? Tim, that is an awesome question, and I was just talking about that. We are going to implement a mail service probably by the end of this month, if not the first week of September. It's called MailDash, and we are doing an API connection with them. What that means is that once you're done with your dispute letter, I want to give you the pros and cons of this, Tim. So just so you can make whatever choice you think is best for you. So we're going to have the ability, when you create all three of your dispute letters, and it's all done, you've created all three, and then Crediversio will have a little line that says, hey, don't have a printer, have mail-.io mail them for you. And we have some special wholesale pricing that we got for them. So less than anybody that's out there as far as mail services. Now, the question is, which is better? Well, in the Fair Credit Reporting Act, I'll show you right here. Let me bring this up. There's something called Exclusion G. And essentially what this says is, if dispute letters are sent on behalf of the client by a third party or a credit repair company, that the bureaus and the creditors can legally ignore them. Doesn't mean they will, it just means they can. So there's always that risk, even though it's your letter. You wrote the letter with the help of Crediversio, but that's incidental. It doesn't matter. The fact that it's your letter, but it's coming from a third-party mail service, can that cause them to reject it? Yeah, it can. However, what we've done that's a little bit different. Now, this will probably help. It remains to be seen. At the very bottom of all the letters, so when it goes to the mail service, our letters are different. What I mean by that is, at the very bottom it says, I personally created I personally created this letter myself, and I'm using mail-.io to send it on my behalf because I don't have a printer. So it says that in there, that you are claiming, you are affirming this is your letter, you created it, regardless of the fact that you're having a third party send it out for you. Now, if that becomes a problem, then I'm sure lawsuits will probably ensue, not from Crediversio, but from people who are using Crediversio, who are not getting resolution on their disputes, especially when there are things on there that are inaccurate and create a liability for the bureaus and the creditor. That will, hopefully it doesn't come to that where the bureaus go, oh, wow, yeah, these letters are legitimately coming from clients that just happen to be using a third-party mail service. But, Tim, the best case scenario is always to do it yourself. I think the next best thing is to come out of Crediversio with Mail Dash, because it has that additional verbiage at the end of the letter, letting the bureau and the creditor know, like, I did create this letter, just happened to be using the service to send it for me. Okay. Crazy sin job. I was born outside the U.S., but I'm a U.S. citizen and have never paid taxes. Am I screwed? Listen, I can't answer that. I am not a tax specialist. Your best bet is to consult with a tax specialist. To be honest with you. Okay. Sorry, thought many questions this week. Is it true if we opt out of marketing through opt out present screen, scores go up? No, that's another one that's false. John Alzheimer and I have talked about that one many times as well. Frankly, even though I've been in the credit repair space for coming up on it'll be 11 years in October. I don't know where a lot of this stuff comes from. I'll go on YouTube every now and or TikTok, and I'll watch people go over this stuff, and I don't know where they get it from. But again, the reason why I'm here every week, and the reason why we'll have dozens and dozens of people come on is I'll tell you what's factual, and honestly, sometimes it's not what people want to hear. I've had people argue with me sometimes. I go, no, you should never pay a collection. You should never talk to collections. No, that's a bad idea. Don't tell a guy who's looked at 25,000 plus credit reports or 20,000 plus credit reports and have had probably 15 to 20,000 consultations and have seen people get sued by collection companies. Don't say ignore collections. It's a bad idea. Usually that's coming from somebody who's not looking at dozens and dozens of credit reports on a daily basis. Let's see. Fernando, welcome. I can't seem to remove two paid in full accounts that is marked as charge-off bad debt purchased by a lender. Any tips going on second round? Yeah, great question, Fernando. So there's no such thing as special tips or special techniques. There's 4 reasons why anything ever gets deleted from a credit report. Either it's outdated, erroneous, meaning just wrong, something on it's wrong that the creditor can't fix. So it's erroneous, outdated, incomplete, unverifiable. Now, in your case, so those are all original creditors. And then there's another one, which is under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act that applies to collection companies where they have to prove legal right to collect. There's certain steps they have to go through. But if you're talking about Fernando disputing an account with an original creditor, it might take 4 rounds before you find out whether or not there's anything on that account that is merit for removal. And what I mean by that is there's nothing you can do or say or any technique to make an account erroneous, outdated, incomplete, or unverifiable. Either it's one of those 4 things or it's not. So how do you find out? Well, you dispute it. And you want to dispute it, hopefully, Crediversio can find an error if there is one. If there is no error, then Crediversio is going to look at that account and go, okay, what is this? Okay, it's a Citibank account, or it's a Ford financing account, or whatever the creditor is. And it'll look into the database and say, okay, what's the highest probability of deletion for this kind of an account? And it'll rank order. And that's the suggested reason it's going to give you. It'll take a stab in the dark based off of statistical data. And then when that second credit report comes in, like you said, you're on round 2, it'll reassess. Usually on round 2, it's just going to be a follow-up to round 1. So we have a saying in the credit repair space that the real repair, the real dispute process begins at round 2. So why do we say that? Because creditors and bureaus can give you a blow-off on that first round. They know a high percentage of people who are doing disputes themselves. If they get blown off that first round, they quit. They don't know what to do next. Most people don't realize that the dispute process is a multi-round process. 3, 4, 5 rounds. So when round 2 comes in, that second dispute that you're on right now, Fernando, when that round 2 comes back to that original creditor saying, hey, I don't agree with the outcome of this so-called investigation. Did you even do an investigation? Please explain to me how you were able to come to this conclusion. Now, they're not going to send you notes. They're not going to send you a bunch of stuff. But what they are going to do is look at that follow-up dispute and realize that this was disputed last month and the individual was not satisfied or sold on the result that they got. Sometimes they're like, well, we sent them a blow-off letter, or we just kind of categorically said all of this stuff is reporting accurately. Just like we say in the tutorial videos. So did they perform what's called a reasonable investigation? Maybe. Maybe they didn't. Probably didn't. So that's what that round 2 is for, is to say, listen, I don't agree with the outcome. Tell me how you came to this outcome. And typically what that does is like, okay, Fernando's not going away. Okay, he's followed it up. Now there's real liability, especially if there's an error. If there's an error and they just told you, this is reporting accurately, even though there was an error, whether or not it was present on the credit report that Crediversio could see, that's a problem. And that's where you see a lot of auto deletion sometimes, especially if it's an older account, they can't verify it. Maybe they archive the data. That actually happens quite a bit when accounts reach a certain age. So don't get tied up thinking, well, is there anything else I could do? Not really. Just go through the dispute process just as the software is guiding you. And it might take 3, 4 rounds to figure out if the account has anything on there that is worthy of a removal. Okay. James, can we edit letters if we hit the send button but haven't mailed them? Yeah, let's show you. Let's do a demo. I got the demo account up. All right, let's make this real quick. I'm going to click 2 items, hit next. I'm going to go with the suggested reason, hit save. Hit save. All right, there we go. Hit finish. Okay, great job. Let me go back to the dashboard. Okay, here's my letter right here, 823. Let's mark it as sent. Mark it. I'll send it out today. Let's pretend I printed it, sent it in the mail. But for you, James. Okay, let's say I went, oh my gosh, you know what? I forgot something. I forgot to add my inquiries. Well, let's go back. Let's go to dispute letters. Here we are, right here. Here's my dispute letter. Hit the plus button. Not sent yet. Okay, let's unsend it. Not sent yet. Click it. There we go. Now I have unsent it. Let's go back to the home page to verify. Yep, see? It is not marked as sent. Go back to dispute letter. Let's hit edit. And then, where are my inquiries? Let's scroll all the way down here. Here they are. Inquiries. Let's add a couple. All right, there we go. Hit next. Now it's going to separate it. It's going to show me the ones that I already got. So we're not messing with these, but here's the new ones I added. All right, let's add dispute reason. I'll go with suggested. Crediversio is a lot smarter than me. then hit finish. There we go. That's how you do it. Okay, Fernando, you are welcome. Yeah, James, pretty easy, huh? Not a problem. All right, let's go. I'm gonna go back to dashboard here. Okay, really good. How much? Man, we're 42 minutes in, and this day is flying. All right, let's go back to the demo. That was a great question, James. Thank you. I definitely wanted to do that demo there. Okay, so dispute letters. You know, the other thing I can do is, like, we have people who will create dispute letters, never mail them, and then they fall off the face of the planet for 2 months, and they come back and they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's right, I got to do this. I signed up for this. I gotta make sure I send out my disputes, but I already did these round one disputes 2 credit reports ago. Well, what do I do now? Hit delete. There we go. Now that tells Credit Versio that let's look at that credit report, the most recent credit report that's in there. Let's look at it as though it's looking at it for the first time. So it'll rescan everything that fast. It'll go, okay, I see all the negative information. Let me scan it again and look at it through a round one lens, even though Credit Versio was thinking that a round one was done months ago. Once I remove that letter, it's like, oh, you don't want to do that. All right, let me break out that credit report again. You know, it looks at a digital file, and then it'll rescan, look for anything that's changed, and it'll present a new round one dispute opportunity for you based on what's on that credit report. Almost said credit card. Let's see. I want to start disputing my bankruptcy on my next round. Should I use the suggested reason, or do you have one better that I don't recognize? So, Henry, a great question. The best dispute reason, and I've said this hundreds and hundreds of times, the best dispute reason is always the one that explains why the account shouldn't be there. So, erroneous, outdated, incomplete, unverifiable. Let's start with those. Is the bankruptcy any one of those? Is it wrong? Meaning, did you file it? Is it not yours? Is it somebody else's? Is it there by mistake? Let's start with that. Okay, no, it's yours. Yeah, everything looks to be reporting correctly. Is it outdated? Meaning, has it been, if it's a Chapter 7, been there more than 10 years? Chapter 13, more than 7 years from the filing date. All right, no, the dates look okay. Is it incomplete? Is there anything on that filing? That's hard to know because not all the bankruptcy information is on the credit report. Usually just has a little bit of data. Or is it unverifiable? Maybe. So start with that. So the suggested reason, unless you have a real reason, an error that you see on that credit report, Henry, that screams that this is incorrect, then all you have left is the suggested reason, and you keep your fingers crossed that that they can't verify it, or something comes back where they're just like, okay, we'll delete this. Now, it's not uncommon to see bankruptcies come off of like TransUnion, maybe Equifax. Really don't see them coming off of Experian very often. But still, you know, having it off of 1 or 2 bureaus might help you. It depends on what you're applying for. But just bear in mind that bankruptcy is one of those things. It's the only thing that the bureaus actively go out and get that information, whereas everything else is voluntarily submitted. So all the data from our creditors is submitted to the bureaus. The bureaus go out and get that information. And no, you cannot prevent that connection by freezing your LexisNexis and your SageStream. That is a myth that has been perpetuated in the credit repair space for decades. So don't worry about freezing accounts. There's a direct connect agreement between the bureaus and SageStream and LexisNexis, which are actually, I think, the same company now. Okay. When, if ever, is it beneficial to dispute a positive account? Yeah, you know what? When we first, I'll tell you a story. When we first launched Credit Versio, like the week of, so this is March, first week of March in 2020, my partner David had an error on a positive account. So it was a closed auto loan that he had paid, and on 2 bureaus, it showed 0 balance paid. And on 1 bureau, it still showed a balance. So it's not really a negative thing, but it was a discrepancy. And he disputed it, and it was fixed. So that's really the only time that you might dispute something positive. Yeah, that's the only thing that I can think of. It's not commonly done. Henry, you are very welcome and good luck. Oh, and let me throw something else in there, Henry. And again, this is coming from a certified FICO pro, a FICO instructor. I'm also an expert with Vantage Score. Been doing this for well over a decade, actually coming up on 11 years now, and tens of thousands of people. I probably had maybe 15, maybe even 20,000 one-on-one consultations in my career. One of the things that I've always told everybody about bankruptcy, and this surprises people, is bankruptcy is not the nail in the coffin that a lot of people think it is. In fact, it's a whole heck of a lot easier to recover from a bankruptcy than it is to wait for collections and charge-offs to age off your credit report. Like I've seen people with mid to high 700 credit scores with a bankruptcy in 24 to 36 months. So what's the reason for that? Well, with a bankruptcy, you are eliminating the debt liability. Now, even though the accounts that went into bankruptcy will still be on the credit report, so you have a little bit, some landmines, some skeletons on the credit report of accounts that you did have that went into default. But the biggest thing is, it's like hitting the reset button. So none of the creditors can collect on the debt, so everything becomes a zero balance. So that's one. So all of the debt load has been eliminated. You literally can start from scratch. That's the whole point of bankruptcy. That's why bankruptcy laws exist. The second thing is, you can't file bankruptcy again for, I think, 7 to 10 years. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's no sooner than 7. So what does that mean? So creditors know that all of your debt has been wiped out. So time to give you some new debt. And that's the way creditors look at it. So you're going to get people lining up to offer you credit. And you sort of get to start from scratch. And it's a really fast way to rebuild. Like if you looked at people who have bad credit, like what I did, had bad credit that were just trying to build credit and let the bad credit age off, we kind of improve slowly, or maybe do some credit repair, get some things deleted. We improve slowly over time. Bankruptcy, a lot faster because the debt's gone and you get to rebuild a lot faster. Now, I will tell you this though, this is the cautionary side of it, Henry. When you have a bankruptcy, you go into what's called a separate scorecard. You have a bankruptcy scorecard. So this is like there's a bunch of scorecards that this is all stuff that happens behind the scenes with FICO and Vantage Score to a certain degree. They're very similar. So if you have a bankruptcy, you are in a certain higher risk scorecard. So what that means is there's certainly a limit to how high your score can go. You're not going to be in the 800s with a bankruptcy. You don't need to be. Anything over 750 is just gravy. 740 is just gravy. Okay, you can pretty much get anything you want for the most part for lenders that are very score centric above 740, 750. I think mortgage is the exception, where 760 there's some extra benefits for being a little bit higher. Okay, so and the only thing to take in consideration is you might have some lender guidelines, like they might not approve you because you have a bankruptcy, but you have the ability to recover a lot faster and start from scratch. So because you're in this high risk scorecard, if you start to do things that are high risk, like you start getting a lot of balances on credit cards, they're not going to like that. This is a high risk activity, no matter whether you got a bankruptcy or not. But you're a little bit under the lens, just to keep that in mind. So your scores are going to be sensitive to anything that looks risky, like nuisance balances. So let's say you got 3, 4, 5 credit cards, you got little balances on all of them. Not good. If your credit utilization rate is constantly over 30, 40, 50%, not good. Because these are all character traits that lead to default. So you want to keep your nose clean, Henry. You want to, pay those credit cards off every month. Don't carry balances. Credit cards should not be used as loans to begin with. I know that's easier said than done, because there's a lot of credit card debt right now. Actually, a record credit card debt. Americans have over $1 trillion in credit card debt. That's a first, by the way. So try to get yourself free of that credit card debt. But so just be mindful, Henry, that don't obsess over that bankruptcy. 24, 36 month, the more distance you put between yourself and that bankruptcy, the better off you're going to be, and the less it's going to impact you. As long as you're building correctly, get a few credit cards. Maybe have somebody add you as an authorized user if you need to. But it's not hard to recover. Let's see. Kiana, does Credit Versio see the inconsistencies on dates, balances? Yes, it does. Etc. For sure. For an account of all three reports, yes. If it's a derogatory account and it sees inconsistencies on dates, it depends. Like if one bureau says, "Oh, this account was opened on July 5th," and a bureau says this was opened on July 8th, that's incidental. It doesn't really matter. But if there's a substantial date difference to where the open date is much newer or has been renewed or updated, and it's clearly going to have something that's going to affect the score, you better bet Credit Versio will catch that. Example, one report showing something different than the others. Yep. That's the magic of Credit Versio. That is the heartbeat of the software that is now recently patented. So we're the first ones that do it. So Credit Versio is reading that credit report, every account across all three bureaus, and then on all subsequent credit reports. So anytime there's any kind of a change that can affect the score, anything that might make a good dispute. This is all layers and layers of algorithms we have built in the Credit Versio to find this stuff. So absolutely, it will see that. And if it thinks it's a good, and it'll rank order too. Like it'll have some things that are not really good for a dispute, and then other things that are. So if you've got multiple errors on a single credit, on a single trade line, then yeah, it's going to go, okay, well, I see 2, 3, 4 errors. Let's rank order this. What's the worst error? What's the highest probability of getting a deletion or a repair? And Credit Versio does that in real time behind the scenes. And that's what it's going to offer you as a suggested reason. So brilliant, brilliant software. Let's see. Black Girl 2, I was with Credit Versio for 5 months with no changes. How was that? Happens all the time. So the only reason for anything to ever come off your credit report is it erroneous, outdated, incomplete, unverifiable. Well, how do you find out? Well, you dispute it. So under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the bureaus and the creditors have the ability to, the burden of proof and the burden of performance is on the creditors and the bureau. So if there's no error, and if they can verify that everything is reporting accurately, then there it will stay for the full 7 years. So in my 11 plus or 10 plus almost 11 years of doing this, and tens of thousands of consultations and millions of disputes, I've seen credit reports where every negative account got deleted. I've seen a ton of credit reports where nothing got deleted. The things that the credit reports where everything got deleted, that's because all those things were wrong or unverifiable. For the credit reports that nothing got deleted, it means that all the information on there that was disputed was reporting accurately per the Fair Credit Reporting Act and presented to the bureaus in a way that is in agreement with what they're supposed to do under federal law. That's how that happens. So the next move is, now, let me give you the exception. If you see something on your credit report and it is egregious, meaning you've disputed it, you know it's wrong, it hasn't come off, that's when you have an attorney. And attorneys that work in consumer credit don't charge you anything. They get paid by the defendant. So if you see something on there, Black Girl 2, that's an exception. But if we're all disputing, and I did this too. This is how I did my credit repair. Or I didn't do it personally. I had the company that I worked for. But they disputed things not as intelligently as Credit Versio, but there's certainly a formula to it. And for me, about 35-40% of the stuff came off. The rest didn't, and I had to settle. So I went back, like, okay, I tried to settle, or I tried to dispute this stuff. I used my legal right to dispute, burden of proof, burden performance on the data furnisher, the creditor, and the bureau. Some stuff got deleted, most of it didn't. Scores went up a little bit, and then I had to do the rest of the work myself. And by that I mean I called up the collection company. I'm like, hey, I owe $1,300. Will you take 5? No, will you take 6? Okay, we made an agreement. And then I settled everything, not my American Express. That was a big bill. I just kind of buried my head in the sand, so I'll admit that here. But most everything else I did settle. And then I put distance. I put time between myself and the negative credit and rebuilt smartly. And then I think maybe 24 months later, I was in the high 7s. So it's just a process. Yeah, we all, trust me, I can sympathize. We all want stuff to come off. But it's not up to us. It's not up to Credit Versio. It's not that you could have said something different. Either these accounts were erroneous, outdated, incomplete, unverifiable, or they weren't. And there's nothing you can say to make them that. They either are or they're not. Okay. Tim, can Credit Versio dispute old addresses? That's not a dispute. That's just a correction. Let me show you. So let's go into your Credit Versio account, go into tutorials, go into resources. Personal info letter is right there. So there's an instruction page, and there's the letter itself in Word format, so you can edit it, and then just send the ID that it tells you to send, and then that's how you're going to correct incorrect names and addresses if you have them. Okay, Greg, let's see. Sorry, last question. If you have an item deleted but sent another, another round. I see what you said. I see your correction down there, Greg. With the same account on it, is there a chance they dispute it? No, they ignore it. So if it's been deleted, great question, by the way. I've asked this of both Steve and John. Both, John was dispute resolution for Equifax. Steve used to run the entire dispute division for TransUnion for 27 years. And I asked them both this question. It's like, what happens? Like, they just categorically ignore it. So if you dispute something, it's not there. The bureaus know what happened, because when they see your dispute, they go in and they're going to submit that as as something to dispute, and they see it's not there, and it's a moot point. The assumption that they make is, oh, this was just handled earlier. So nothing wrong with that at all. Don't worry about it. That's what's happened. All three are showing differently. What do you mean all three are showing differently? It depends on if you're talking about a bureau showing things differently and it's the same account. What are they showing differently? And does it really mean something? Like, for example, the example that I gave a second ago was some people get really hung up on like last activity dates. That doesn't matter. Or that's a consumer field, meaning that's not something that that's scored or part of FICO. The open dates are a couple of days off. That's not really something that's going to have a lot of weight to it as far as the dispute goes. Greg, you are very welcome. Okay, where are we right now? We are coming up on 1 hour. Still got a couple dozen people watching. Thank you so much. Any other questions? I usually go about an hour. And if you're watching this on a replay, feel free to post your question. I will get to it. For everybody that's watching, little bit of housekeeping. I will not be here Wednesday. There'll be no live next Wednesday. I'll be on a little vacation. Wednesday after that, I will be back, and pretty sure I'll be back with John Alzheimer. Depends on what his schedule's like. Okay, Tim, yes, you are very welcome. Appreciate that. And again, you can always drop us an email, support@creditversio.com. Travis gets those. Travis is trained by me. Very, very good. And if you want to post in here on Facebook, I usually swing back around and answer those the day up, but certainly within 24 hours. Okay, that is going to be it for me. We are over the 1 hour mark. I appreciated being here. I'm glad you were here. Had a good time. Great questions today. And look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. All right, take care.